Okay.
The Secretary of Defense gives orders to our future 12th President, General Zachary Taylor, who was in charge of 3rd Infantry, 3,000 soldiers and their artillery over in New Orleans, Louisiana. Their orders were to load up on the steamboats, come around the Gulf of Mexico, right here to Corpus to defend us on the front lines. With the Army on their way, the founders of our city, Mr. Henry Lawrence Kenny and William Humphreys, they wanted a big, warm welcoming for the Army, so they gathered all the residents, all 356 of them. They gathered right at our very first port in the city on the corner of Shoreline and Cooper's Alley. With everybody gathered there, the Army boats were pulling in and everyone was excited. Hello, 3rd Infantry. Welcome to Corpus. Thank you for defending us. Well, according to Zachary Taylor's journal, the 5th boat pulling into our port, there was a young lieutenant on board. And this young lieutenant was more excited than anybody else to be here. This was his first assignment for the Army. Eager to prove what a great military leader he was, he wanted to show to his platoon how a soldier brings in the boats, but had no experience as a sailor. Why, he jumps onto the side of the boat, grabs a rope, and pulls on it. He loses his balance and goes head first, splash into Corpus Christi waters. Everybody was laughing, cracking themselves up. The real sailors and quartermaster ran around to the side of the ship, fished the lieutenant out of the water, and brought him back up on board like a sopping wet dog. The name of the young lieutenant is our future 18th President, Ulysses S. Grant. First day in Corpus, head first into our waters. Well, with 3rd Infantry now stationed in Corpus Christi, the 356 residents were overjoyed. They started opening some of their very first businesses, including our first gambling hall so folks could try their luck. They opened the first theater in Corpus Christi where they put on old Shakespeare plays, and they opened our very first saloons. Everybody was welcomed in the saloon. The sailors, the cowboys, the soldiers, the residents, everyone's welcomed in. And you could drink just about anything you wanted in our saloons. Corpus was founded on a port of international trade. And thanks to our founders, Henry Lawrence Kenny and William Humphreys, they didn't let anything like law get in the way of good business trade. They traded with all the United States up and down the East Coast. They traded with all the European countries. And even throughout the war, there was secret channels where they would still trade with Mexico. We were thought of as a smuggler's haven. Well, with all this international trade going on, you could drink anything you wanted. We had a little bit of all of it. Imported beers, domestic beers, and we brewed some of our own. Folks loved that moonshine, so we brewed some shine too. We had gold tequila, silver tequila, Caribbean rum, bourbon, Old Crow whiskey, gin, rye, champagne, wine for the good celebrations, even absinthe from France. Well, the bartenders or mixologists, they had recipes. And they were pretty crafty. They could take old butter churns and with a couple of modifications, make them into mixers. Oh, they had some wild recipes like red eye, cactus wine, tarantula juice, and coffin varnish. And a lot of these recipes will call for the whiskeys and ryes or gins and tequilas, and they dump them in there together. And for some flavor, why, they had their sweeteners like pure cane sugar, brown sugar. They put some of that in there. Or they had their bitters, berry juice mixed with spices, and they put some of that in there too. Put the lid on it and mix it all up with a hand crank. Now the little screen there, that's all the filter you get from everything in the jar. Why, they grab a whiskey glass, pour their concoction right into the glass, and serve it up to the cowboys and cowgirls that would drink it right up and love every bit of it, which would really explain the bar fights in our saloons here. Well, The saloons were your social hubs. Everybody after work would come to the saloons. This is where you would swap the local gossip in town. This is where you got your local news. If there was an election in town, they would vote in the saloons. They would suspend all the card games and gambling. They put away the drinks and alcohol. Everyone was welcome to come right on in, cast a vote for mayor or for sheriff. And when all the voting was concluded, why, they'd break out the games and gambling. They'd break out the drinks, and it was back to business again. Now, if you came to Corpus Christi and all the hotels and summer cottages were all booked up and no vacancy, well, that's no trouble at all. Just come on over to the local saloons. After business hours, they would close their doors, and then the staff would clean the saloons. But all that means is we're going to take handfuls of sawdust, nature's magic eraser, and sprinkle it over the saloon floors. The sawdust soaks up any beer, foam, whiskey, or blood that may have been spilled on the floor that night, depending on how your night went. And then everybody grabs a broom. We sweep up all the sawdust, sweep it out the door, open the saloon. Everyone's welcome to come right on in. They can put 5 cents right there on the bar, and for that night they can sleep on the saloon floor. Not very comfortable being a hardwood floor, but that was a lot safer than trying to sleep outside on the ground with the rattlesnakes everywhere in Corpus. We were infested with them. Now, before we got that electricity in the 1890s, we used these kerosene lanterns and chandeliers. We poured the kerosene in, light a match, set fire to the wicks,